Dear speakers, dear participants, welcome to our session today on Urban Forum's Cities Retreat for Setting Their Future Directions. I am the International Cooperation Coordinator at Marmara Municipalities Union, and I'm the Head of International Affairs of Marmara Urban Forum that we are organizing today. And we have very distinguished speakers. Let me briefly tell their names. Mr. Wataru Kawasaki from World Urban Forum, Ms. Vanessa Vardon from Pritzker Forum on Global Cities, Ms. Norliza Hashim from Malaysia Urban Forum, Mr. Mikhail Sverdlov from Imbrix Forum, Ms. Katarina Belikova from Moscow Urban Forum, and my colleague, Ms. Ezgi Küçük Çalışkan from Marmara Urban Forum. Welcome all. We know that urban forums have a huge impact on urbanization and policy making in cities, in these processes. And they are the connection points for urban actors. They are the networking platforms, and they're a common ground for all of us to exchange ideas, to share good practices, and to seek solutions to the problems of cities, actually. And today we have 5 forums with us. Although they have some common features, they also differ from each other in some ways. So I'd like to ask each speaker the role of the forums that you represent in shaping urban policies and seeking solutions to the urban challenges in your countries or abroad. And I will ask you to kindly give your answers in 5 minutes each. So I'd like to start with Mr. Wataru Kawasaki. Dear Wataru, urban forums are also pushing us towards implementing SDGs and new urban agenda, and World Urban Forum has a very special role in this. So how does World Urban Forum contribute to the urbanization and urban policies of the cities?
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm so glad to be part of this Marmara Urban Forum. Thank you. The World Urban Forum, as many of you know, the World Urban Forum is the global United Nations conference on sustainable urbanization. So it does contribute to globally mobilizing diverse stakeholders to gather around to discuss and understand sustainable urbanization and how to put urban policies in place for cities. So a little bit about the World Urban Forum. We call it the WUF, WF. WUF was established in 2001 by the United Nations and convened by the UN Habitat to address the urbanization and its impact on the communities or cities or economies, climate change and policies. So the first WUF was held in Nairobi, Kenya in 2002, and then it's been held around the world ever since. So the World Urban Forum, we have diverse stakeholders from national, regional, local governments, academia, business people, community leaders, urban planners, so to attend the World Urban Forum. Well, we have next World Urban Forum, which is coming up next year in Poland, in Katowice. So we have quite a number of preparations with the host country and then stakeholders to make this WUF 11 happen in Poland. Well, as you may know, the New Urban Agenda adopted at the Habitat 3 conference in 2016. And this year is actually 2021 is the actually to celebrate the 5 years after the adaptation of the New Urban Agenda. So there will be the United Nations high-level meeting on the New Urban Agenda in April 2022 to review the New Urban Agenda. And then the next WUF 11 will be taking place after this important high-level meeting on cities. And the WUF 11 contributes to providing global platform and opportunities with the multi-stakeholders to follow up with key recommendations to be made at this high-level meeting on the cities, and also the set agenda for our our urban future. So World Urban Forum is a kind of the global conference, but it contributes to the global globally addressing the sustainable urbanization with the diverse stakeholders, not only the member states, but also other stakeholders, civil society, academia, and then it is the global platform to address the sustainable urbanization. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your reply. And now I would like to continue with Vanessa. And Pritzker Forum is actually held by Chicago Council and Financial Times, right? And could you tell us on your forum and its contribution to cities?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here at the Marmara Urban Forum. And it's such a pleasure to be with all of these other wonderful forums that bring together cities and really are trying to further the urban agenda and the role that cities play in solving global challenges. So as you mentioned, the Pritzker Forum on Global Cities is co-hosted by both the Chicago Council on Global Affairs in partnership with the Financial Times news organization, which they've been a wonderful partner and bring a lot to the table. But representing the Chicago Council, we are a global affairs organization that will be in our 100th year next year. So while the forum itself is only in its 7th year, our organization has been around for a very long time, and we really consider our role in the urban space as a convener, much like what Haru said, my colleague from the Urban Forum, the World Urban Forum. We try to bring together a diverse set of stakeholders from across business, academia, civics, and culture, which we consider to be the 4 pillars of urban life. And I think what we bring to the table as our unique contribution is really looking at cities as actors as well as places. So we do often talk about urban issues, or as you mentioned, solutions to problems in cities like transportation or housing or education or equity. But I think really what we try to contribute to urban policy and urbanization is a look at the role of cities in multi-level governance. So the role that cities play as actual actors themselves. So the role of mayors and the role of city networks and the way that both local, national, and international governance organizations should be or could be incorporating cities into their discussions. So one of the ways we say that is having a seat at the table. So that has kind of been our unique contribution since the inception of the forum in 2015. So I feel quite young compared to the World Urban Forum, only being in our 7th year. And I think one of the most unique contributions that we are able to make is when we do bring together these diverse stakeholders who don't necessarily work on cities in their day-to-day lives, but have an outsized influence on what happens in the cities in which they operate. So for example, the very first forum we held in 2015, our closing panel was called The Foreign Policy of Cities and featured 3 secretaries of state, foreign ministers, as well as the late Professor Benjamin Barber, to talk about if cities really could have a foreign policy, and if so, how. So I think it's conversations like those, it's conversations like in this past year when we've pivoted to being an online virtual event series where we've brought together just in the last 6 months the CEOs of Microsoft and United, and previously I had the CEO of MasterCard and some of those other big city urban stakeholders who might not be thinking about cities every day, but very much have a role and an influence and an impact on the way that our cities are shaped and how they're run. Bringing those people together with mayors has been really where we found our contribution to urban policy.
Thank you very much. Actually, Barber's book, What If Mayors Ruled the World, was very, very fascinating and, I think inspiring for all of us. And they also had a initiative called Global Parliament of Mayors with the contributions of Barber. And it was I think, huge success. Thank you very much, Vanessa. Now I'd like to continue with Katerina. Moscow Urban Forum is a very prestigious forum, and actually I need to admit that it is one of the forums that inspired us to organize Marmara Urban Forum in the first place. So please let us know, how do you contribute to cities?
Yes, it's very nice hearing that, and thank you very much for inviting Moscow Urban Forum to take part in this amazing and meaningful discussion, and greetings from sunny Moscow. So I will tell a bit more about the forum itself. So the first Moscow Urban Forum took place 10 years ago, and since then became the main platform for discussing Moscow's urban development agenda. Since the first event, Moscow has changed in several ways. Almost of all Moscow's major transformations have been discussed at different stages of the forum, with the participation of Moscow's top officials and leading international experts. Today, we see that urban conferences are organized in all countries and regions of the world, shaping a conceptual, informational, and media space. Last year, 2020, was a challenge for all big international events, many of which were cancelled or held online for the very first time. Moscow Urban Forum 2021 was the 10th anniversary forum, and during the last decade, the forum has grown into a large international congress with a developed network of partners and experts. And Moscow seeks to expertise and experience exchange with mega cities the same size and importance, as well as focused on international cooperations and strengthens it through various channels and organizations, including OECD, World Bank, on Habitat, and other international partners. Topics of the Moscow Urban Forum always allow to fully reflect the development of Moscow agenda and highlight major trends of urban development in the world. So the key topics covered are urban leadership and governance, urban environment and housing, urban transportation and mobility. Of course, we talk about economy and business, and about urban culture and social well-being, about technologies and science, and sustainable development, of course, is one of the principal topics for the recent years. Well, as per answering the question of the contribution of the forum to urban policies and the city itself, I would like to make an example of our big forum's friend and the greatest speaker and urbanist, author of the City for People book, Jan Gehl, who was the keynote speaker at the very first Moscow Urban Forum 10 years ago, and since then participated in a lot of Moscow Urban Forum events. So he likes to show slides with pictures and that demonstrate the transformation Moscow has had since 2011. So partly taking the recommendation of Jan Gehl architects for creating a radically better balance between cars and people, there was a program which is called Moya Ulica. It was held in Moscow in 2015-2018. And it was a program of complex improvement of Moscow streets. So the main goals were to reconstruct the streets network and to make a favorable environment for pedestrians. And the program implied reconstruction of the road surface and expansion of sidewalks and reorganization of traffic and some streets and planting the trees. So just during 2015, there were reconstructed 40 streets. In 2016, 68 streets. In 2017, 80 units, including streets and squares. So another big program that is being held in Moscow just right now is called Moy Rayon, which is translated like My District. And it's a program of complex development of Moscow residential areas. So one of the goals of the program is to eliminate an inequality of suburban areas development and to make a city without suburbs, which suggested a comprehensive approach and on some remote areas from the center. Well, also I would like to note that apart from the forum, we hold the Urban Health Congress. It is held at the same date and at the same venue, and the Congress focuses on the integration of the urban health approach in urban management and on the presentation of system mechanism for establishing safe and sustainable systems of human and urban health. This year, the Congress was held for the second time, and we hope that eventually it will grow into a big separate forum in the future. The point is that the Moscow government acknowledges that the health is one of the key elements for the quality of life, And we see that the modern residents require a reaction by professionals, not only in the field of healthcare itself, but all the key areas of urban development, from urban planning to transport. And in Moscow, as well as in other modern megacities, the health in all policies principle is becoming more relevant, and that puts the quality of life of the residents as the key priority. Here we have an analytical center of Moscow Urban Forum, and they're currently engaged with the research, which is called the City in Shape, the strategies and tools megacities use to fight obesity. And this topic was widely discussed at the forum within Urban Health Congress. And at the forum, Moscow joined the international program, which is called Cities Changing Diabetes. And the agreement of intent was signed at the forum for the implementation of the Cities Changing Diabetes program in Moscow. So we've got a special also format like MOVE Labs. It's a unique format for the creation of practical solutions by young professionals. This year we have made the Urban Health Lab of cities interventions, and this experience was rather successful because it has shown a big high potential for implementing urban health solutions in the urban environment in Moscow. The aim of these labs was to create kind of prototypes of design solutions that improve the health of citizens for various public spaces in Moscow. And at the end, we had a number of developed solutions like specific therapeutic greenhouses in one of the public spaces of Moscow, a space of silence in one of the busiest industrial districts of Moscow, or a public space for pregnant women near one of the maternity hospitals. So apart this program, we are preparing to launch an annual educational program. So before the forum, we held, like it was the Analytical Center of Moscow Urban Forum, who held the first educational course for employees of the Moscow government on introduction to the urban health approach. It was like 15 experts from urban health sphere, led 14 master classes, and more than 300 employees of the Moscow government were listeners of this program. And this educational model will bring the process of implementing best practices in Moscow to a new level, so we hope so. So at the end, I can say that the more practical formats the forum has, the more effective impact on the urban policies and the city itself we can see. Forums should be a think tank which launches and supports initiatives in the city. So the important cooperation agreements should be signed at these forums to make it real.
That's very important. Thank you very much, Katerina. And let's continue with dear Norliza, Hashim. Marmara Urban Forum was actually one of the partners of Malaysia Urban Forum last year. And as far as I remember, your team was also running the Secretariat of World Urban Forum when it was organized in Kuala Lumpur. I was also there. I had a chance to attend the World Urban Forum at the time. So please tell us, what is your forum's role when contributing to the cities of Malaysia, please?
Yeah, thank you, Burcuhan, and thank you for inviting me, and very nice to be here among all the other urban forum. I think, like you said, we had that advantage because we were the host city for the World Urban Forum 9, and it was the first urban forum just after the 2015 adoption of the SDGs and the adoption of the new urban agenda in 2016. So I think it had a city focus, WOF 9, where we talked specifically on localizing the new urban agenda. And the outcome of the World Urban Forum 9 was the Kuala Lumpur Declaration, which again listed out a lot of action plans that cities needs to actually undertake in order for them to escalate the localization of the new urban agenda. So I think following that, we also realized that that is a commitment that we need to continue, and we need to ensure that our local stakeholders, create the right momentum and awareness as we move on into the localization of all these important global documents. But also because Malaysia itself is an urban nation, we are about 76% of our urbanization rate. And because of that, the forum is definitely an important forum that is very, very timely and to address all the kinds of dynamic issues that Malaysia and our cities are facing. And I think when we looked at the forum, it is actually, the World Urban Forum format is something that we kept even till today in all our national urban forum. It is very multi-stakeholders, as has been described by the two previous panelists, and I think that is a very core part of the urban forum, because you are able to connect all kinds of people to discuss an issue that certain groups of people will only consider that of interest of maybe one ministry or one agency, but able to bring stakeholders which are grassroots to come to the same table as a policymaker or a decision maker. I think that is the uniqueness of the urban forum that I think we learn a lot from the World Urban Forum experience. And I think till today, what have happened is we've actually organized 3 national urban forum. So 2020, 2019, we set the stage further in terms of trying to bring the global discussion to a local platform. But after doing the first National Urban Forum, we realized that there was a lot actually not only taking into consideration of the global goals, we at the local level also, have a lot of policies that we need to translate to the local level. So aligning these national policies, global goals, understanding the local issues, I think was a very big task. And until today, we have actually moved on from 2019 into right until we just actually completed our National Urban Forum last month. And we find that, the discussions from very high level have become more and more grounded as we move on year to year. And I think this is something very, very important. And the topics are becoming more action-oriented. People are seeking solutions. People are asking more on the how to do, what to do, rather than asking about policies and other issues. But COVID-19 also brought a lot of dimensions. It brought in a different discussion to the table. Things that we discussed in 2019, was some of it was a big turnaround. And 2021, you could see that we are going back to some of the basic issues, which is very important also for cities. So I think the forum helps to address all this. And of course, partnerships and networking is very crucial. And people were not only networking between agencies and ministries, but also from grassroots levels with all kinds of stakeholder levels. That partnership is important. And our World Urban Forum also allowed us to have a global partner. So we are very lucky to have UN Habitat supporting our event, UNSCAP, and also all our local UN organizations which are in Malaysia that has supported our event. And this global dimension provides that kind of learning for our local stakeholders. And I think this is where the contribution to the urban policies in the city is actually in our national, we've actually just launched our 12 Malaysia plan, which is actually a 5-year economic plan. And I think it's really nice to see that sustainability is one of the 4 main pillars of that document. And a lot of the things that we have been discussing at the urban level are also very important and well discussed in that document. And I think this is where we feel that the urban forum discussions that have been undertaken for the last 3 years have created some level of impact. Not only that, we also see all kinds of organizations, also having a lot more discussion on urban issues. And I think that's also very encouraging. So it's just not us, because we are just the promoter of sustainable urbanization for Malaysia. And now I think the big impact is that we are seeing other cities very keen to host our Malaysia Urban Forum. So that kind of partnership is very important for us. We don't want it to be just in our domain. We want it to grow. We are more than happy to always share, and this year even we had cities hosting side events just parallel to our events. And I think in the long term, that's what we want to see. More and more Malaysian cities taking ownership of the urban forum, hosting the forum, and bringing in more stakeholders along the way. So I think the contribution to the urbanization and urban policies has been gradual, but definitely impactful in some of the works that we have noticed for the last 3 years. I'll pause there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is how we actually learn from each other. Thank you very much. We can move on with Mr. Mikhail Sverdlov. Actually, you have a slightly different role among other forums. In BRICS Forum targets not only Russia, but also BRICS region, and recently, especially for the last 2 years, all other countries as well, as far as I know. How do you see this contribution of BRICS Forum to the cities in Russia, in the BRICS region, and all over the world, actually?
Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here, to be a part of Marmara Urban Forum. Thanks for invitation, and I will tell you in a few words about our forum, in BRICS Forum. First of all, is a few words about BRICS. It is an international association comprising of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The BRICS influence on the international arena, economic might of the member states, their importance as one of the main driving forces of the global economic development, a large population and vast natural resources. The International Municipal BRICS Forum, or IMBRICS Forum, is a unique international business platform for regions and municipalities around the world. It was initiated during the meeting of Ministers for Youth Affairs at the 4th Annual BRICS Youth Summit held from 15 to 19 July 2018 in Bela Bela, Limpopo province of the Republic of South Africa by a regional delegation from St. Petersburg, Russia, helmed by municipal head Mikhail Cherepan. The delegation put forward a proposal to create a global information and communication platform for the BRICS municipalities. This proposal was supported by the participants of the Youth Summit. The forum is held annually in the 4th quarter of the year in St. Petersburg and brings together representatives of regional and municipal authorities, medium and small businesses, non-profit organizations and associations from the BRICS countries and beyond. The multidisciplinary business program of the IMBRICS Forum is focused on the issues of sustainable development of the BRICS territories, humanitarian cooperation, attraction of the investments in different fields and opportunities for public-private partnerships. The forum was first held in September 2019 at the Lenexpo Exhibition Complex with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. 20 sessions were held within the framework of the IMBRICS Forum business program. Representatives of municipalities from Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa exchanged best practices for the development of territories, presented investment attractive projects, and established new business contacts. More than 700 participants attended the event. In 2020, the IMBRICS Forum was held under Russian chairmanship in BRICS and was included in the text of the 12th BRICS Summit Moscow Declaration, approved by the leaders of the BRICS countries. The forum's business program was co-organized by various ministers, federal services, federal universities, and public organizations of the Russian Federation. The total number of speakers at the forum 2020 was more than 170 people, and the number of connected users was more than 4,000. Representatives of more than 30 countries of the world joined the IMBRICS Forum as listeners with the BRICS Plus Forum. The business program included 19 sessions and the signing ceremonies of cooperation agreements between the Brazilian city of Guarulhos and Russian cities of Perm and Chelyabinsk. In 2021, the forum will be held on November 5 and 6 at the Expo Forum Exhibition Center in St. Petersburg also. Starting this year, the forum will adopt a hybrid format. In-person attendance will be combined with the additional use of high technologies for video conferencing with foreign speakers and live broadcasts for participants. The theme of the IMBRICS Forum 2021 is Challenges of Sustainable Development and International Municipal Cooperation in the BRICS Plus format. Municipal development as a gyroscope of a changing world. The forum will be held in the BRICS Plus format once more, and will host guests from 64 countries of the world. Around 20 cooperation agreements the BRICS municipalities are planned to be signed on our forum this year. It should be noted that one of the most important tasks of the event is to attract investment into multi-industry projects of municipal cities of the BRICS countries that are focused on the sustainable development of territories. To achieve this goal, the IMBRICS Forum 2021 will host a presentation of such projects to invited representatives of Russian and foreign investment funds and banking structures, as well as private investors. That's all about our forum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mikhail Sverdlov. It's a very wide area that you're actually working on in your forums. Now, my dearest colleague Ezgi, biraz da sen bize bahsedebilir misin MARUF'un?
Can you talk to us a little bit about the impact of MARUF on urban development? Ezgi, please.
My dearest colleague, Burcuhan, let me continue in Turkish.
Marmara Urban Forum is maybe we should start with the name, talking about its impact. It's the second of which we are organizing this year. It is a union of municipalities for the north area of Turkey, including Istanbul, which is a megapole, a world megapole, and the municipalities around the Marmara Sea are actually members of the municipalities union. 14 different municipalities are members, and with many stakeholders are a part of this forum. We started out in 2019. As the name indicates, we started out with the Marmara region municipalities in the beginning, not just their own challenges, but also their relations with the world, because they also involved a world-class megapolis city like Istanbul. So the Marmara Municipalities Union is, in that sense, focused on the urban challenges and protection preservation of the Marmara Sea and increasing capacity. And besides the micro level, also a macro level of vision and discussion platform was among the objectives of the Marmara Urban Forum. So when we held the Marmara Urban Forum for the first time, we thought about how we can provide solutions for urban areas. We have some challenges on the local, national, and international levels, but we did not want to focus on the challenges or the problems themselves, but rather on the solutions, the possibility of solutions. And for that, we did not want to have a unilateral perspective. We needed to have a multi-stakeholder approach. So we decided to organize the forum with under the motto "Cities Producing Their their solutions, generating their solutions. And this is the second time we're organizing it. Marmara as a region contains 1/3 of the whole Turkish population. So UN Habitat became a partner this year, but we had the support of UN Habitat in the previous years as well. And this year we focused on the economical, political, social, and ecological changes and issues that urban life is creating on people. We plan to actually work on international cooperation on a regional level, on a national level, and international level, and to actually empower the associations and all kinds of organizations to struggle against these challenges, to increase awareness among all the citizens and residents of the cities, to provide more sustainability and inclusiveness, as well as a flow of data and information to enhance the different tiers of urban structure, to have an inclusive, livable, and habitable urban structure. And Marmara Forum is very, very young, so to say, compared to all these others organizations that have taken part in the panel. We're still taking our baby steps, so to say, but it is clear how much the region actually needed such a forum to help address these issues, as well as solutions from academia to civil society to local governments to grassroots students, and even students were have taken part as stakeholders. So in the first, we had determined 12 different themes, intersecting themes, in the first event. But this year, of course, after such a crisis as pandemic that we are all trying to cope with in the world, as well as the continuing climate crisis, as well as the disasters such as the wildfires, floods, or earthquakes, or the some of the local crises like the marine pollution in the Marmara Sea, are actually the crises that brought together a fast need for solutions that we have to cooperate upon. So that's why this year we adopted the motto Rethink and Co-act for the second organization. So coming back to your question, how has the Marmara Urban Forum impacted urban policies? It's a little too early to bring out, to determine a certain impact. This is a forum that we have been organizing every 2 years, and this is only the second event. But even after the first event, we have seen that stakeholders who somehow knew of each other but could not come together have started carrying out mutual projects. So this networking opportunity for them showed us that we were really on the right path. And we had started out on the right path, and all our discussions led us to some policies in a regional level. For example, we thought about a strategic plan for the Marmara region on a local scale, and also correlating it with the SDGs. And in that sense, that was a priority for us. So I can say as a result that we will probably see the more solid impacts in the future. But here we see that it is a source of enthusiasm and zeal for all municipalities in the region, as well as municipalities from adjacent regions as well. We believe that this is an initiative that has helped us take the first steps in the right path.
And thank you all for your replies. And now I can just make the second round for the questions. And now I wish to learn that the very end, the primary objective of organizing your forums. I mean, in other words, what is it that you truly desire when you're organizing your forums? And how do you plan to transform all these outputs of your forums into actual policies and actions? And how do you foresee the implementation and monitoring steps? Again, for each question, we can have 5 to 6 minutes, and we can follow the same flow. So Mr. Wataru Kawasaki, maybe you can just start.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the World Urban Forum presents the opportunity to come up with the outcome documents. We call it WOOF declared actions, or we used to have a declarations, but the from previous WOOF 10 in Abu Dhabi in 2020, we changed to declared actions because we thought the declaration is a declaration, but we want to more focus on the actions, not only declared commitments, but we like to make sure the actions are in place in the country. That's why we call it the WOOF declared actions. So that's actually with the committed actions from multi-stakeholders, including national, regional, local governments, business partners, academia, civil society, and among others, to advance the implementation of the New Urban Agenda as an accelerator of the sustainable sustainable development goals. But with such a committed actions declared at the World Urban Forum, it is the opportunity and platform to localize the New Urban Agenda and its SDGs and transform the WOOF outcome into the implementation. One of the good examples is the National Urban Forum. National Urban Forum is an integral part of the World Urban Forum global process. And as we have in this panel today, and the World Urban Forum and the National Urban Forum are key instruments to facilitate global and national levels multi-stakeholder engagement and commitment for the implementation of the New Urban Agenda and the SDGs. In next 3 months, actually, in this year, we plan to have more than 25 national urban forums. It's quite a number of national forums actually are happening to kickstart the preparations of the next World Urban Forum 11 in June 2022, and also from the different regions, and we make sure that those national urban forums being as part of the World Urban Forum global process and localizing the commitments at the national and the regional levels. For example, we had a World Urban Forum 9, as Madam Norliza already said, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia in 2019. Actually, we worked together with Madam Norliza and her team to organize the World Urban Forum 9. And as she mentioned, since 2018, WOOF 9, Malaysia has committed to organize the National Urban Forum ever since. So since 2019. So it is actually the World Urban Forum is committed with the host country and host cities to make sure the implementation of their commitments at the World Urban Forum and then in the region. So they are quite committed to transform their the declaration into the actions and also the policies at the national level. And how to monitor? This is quite, the very important question after commitment and actions, how to monitor the implementation and the progress. So UN Habitat has created the online that is called Committed Actions. And this actually, the urban platform has been integrated with the platform of the Habitat 3 conference. So we had more than 200 commitments made during the Habitat 3 conference. So those together with those commitments, we put all the commitments and actions into this Urban Agenda platform. That's where actually we can monitor, and also also it can attract other partners to join the action with the partners. So as a focal point for the sustainable urban development within the UN system, the UN Habitat, we continue supporting committed actions and partnering to work together with the National Urban Forum's hosts and the organizers, and look forward to seeing actual implementation on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wataru. Now we can continue with you, dear Vanessa, please.
Thank you. So in direct contrast to my colleague at the World Urban Forum, at the Pritzker Forum on Global Cities, a lot of the way that we have been able to measure impact has been anecdotal. We don't have declarations or anything signed or anything quite as formal. And as really a convener, we've had to rely a lot on the stories that we hear from participants and from stakeholders, much like what your colleague Ezgi was saying about the stakeholders coming together and starting to work on projects, and you kind of hear about it after the fact. That has sort of been our experience over the last 7 years. I'll just give a few funny examples. I wouldn't say, I don't know if they're exactly impact or if they're causal, but we have had a few instances where we have sort of predicted what might be coming down the pipeline. So in 2015, we actually had our moderator as well as the former foreign minister of the UK predicting Brexit. And in 2016, we had Tan Chor Chuan from the National University of Singapore speaking on a panel about global threats to the global city and speaking all about the both health as well as economic effects of a pandemic. So it's been very interesting as organizers to get to go back and look at these panels and see how they have become more and more relevant as we move forward, or even to watch as we're doing our panels live now and kind of predict, try to make guesses at what might come true out of what we're hearing be talked about on our stage. And that has been wonderful, but it is highly anecdotal. So we have tried to put a few metrics in place around gender diversity of our speakers. So as over the course of the last 7 years, we've gotten closer and closer to a 50-50 male-female gender diversity of panelists. We've also paid a lot of attention to the sectors that both our speakers as well as our attendees come from. And I think one of the really interesting things that happened in 2020, 2021, and continues to happen for us has been a redefinition of the way that we define reach. We used to be in-person, high-level, 3-day in-person conference hosted every year in Chicago in the month of June, which is just about the only month you want to be coming to Chicago in. When March 2020 hit and we pivoted to being a virtual event series and doing everything in this format that we're all here together in and now has kind of become commonplace, we really had to think about our reach and who was going to be experiencing our content and the format that our content took, which has been a really interesting exercise for our entire team. And I think also our speakers as well, as we've kind of changed the way that we ask them questions and the things that we ask them to do with us. And even going from, we've always had the stage, the content on our stage, which is very, very important and is where these big conversations happen. But it was always, the networking that happened at the coffee breaks or the connections that were made at the dinners that we hosted on the second night of the conference, or even we had a thing called a night owl where we all probably stayed up much too late, just connecting with each other on a personal, direct level that we have been trying to recreate and factor into the way that we define our reach and we define our impact. So I think even the way that we measure our impact has been kind of a moving target in this past year and a half for us. One thing I will say is we've been very lucky that we have a very flexible kind of organizing committee and approach to how we deliver on our mission going forward in the face of the pandemic and even post-pandemic, as people are rethinking if they're in their offices or if they're traveling, and speakers are deciding if they're going to accept invitations to be live versus virtual, and all of those considerations that we're all dealing with. So we've been able to be very flexible and just have that laser focus on how do we deliver on our mission. It doesn't have to look the same way that it has perhaps looked in the past, which has been wonderful. But one thing we are eager to bring back are these small level gatherings and recreate that networking that is just much different to try to create in the virtual space. So we are very much looking forward to being able to bring back our global cities dinners in cities around the world, or our annual mayor's roundtable that we used to host in conjunction with the city of Chicago during our in-person event. And we talked a little bit earlier about the Global Parliament of Mayors. One of the other things that we've done during this time, as we've shifted away from this, spending most of our time planning a large in-person event, has been to take up leadership roles in other organizations, or to try to step in and be involved in a much more direct way as we have a little bit more time, not having to worry about flying all these people to Chicago. So we are now the chair, Ivo Dalder, the president of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, is now the chair of the advisory committee of the Global Parliament of Mayors, which has been a wonderful exercise in keeping us connected to those mayors. And my team personally has spent a lot more time just reaching out individually to our counterparts, both at urban forums like those that you see here, as well as in mayors' offices, to just be able to stay connected without necessarily running into each other on this sort of forum circuit that we all used to be able to go to and run into each other organically. So that's been really great. And we have a couple other neat projects that we've done to try to translate our work into more approachable kind of public audience type settings. So we have a project right now called In Other Words. So one of my colleagues on the research side of the house wrote a report about beach access and equity issues around beach access and on the Lake Michigan shore, which is where Chicago is located. And we're actually working now with the Chicago Public Arts Group to take that report and translate it into murals that will be placed in public access points all along around the city, so that the public can also engage with the same type of work that used to almost be reserved for that 3-day very high level discussion. So we've just really tried to be creative and open with the way that we're willing to measure impact. And thankfully, we have wonderful sponsors who help make that happen and have been very flexible with us. So I think I would leave it there. And in terms of goals for the forum, I've been with the forum since its second iteration, and I really think that just continuing to find a way to be relevant without duplicating efforts. So we've heard from 6 wonderful urban forums here, and that is not even the tip of the iceberg of what is out there in terms of people doing and contributing work in this space. And so one of the things that we've really done is try to look internally and say, how do we be indispensable without duplicating efforts? And there's always the ability to translate a solution you heard somewhere else into your local context, right? So there'll always be that. But how can we continue on the conversations that are being had at other places rather than repeating them? How do we take what was said at WWOOF or UN Habitat or wherever and add to it and keep the conversation going rather than having disparate conversations? So that's one of the things that we're trying to do. And I can't wait to attend all of your forums and hopefully be able to do that soon in person again.
Thank you very much. And I wouldn't personally mind, coming to Chicago, but I see your point. And I couldn't agree with you more that networking is, I think, one of the best outputs that we can have at the end of the forums. Thank you very much, Vanessa. Now we can continue with Katarina. It will be great if you just keep it in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. Thank you. So I would like to say that, so what was the Moscow Urban Forum like before? It was a venue that served as an instrument for attracting international expertise and global attention and for advancing the urban agenda. The aim of the forum was to apply global trends to the opportunities and needs of Moscow, the topic that I was previously told before. So the position of Moscow was to be a recipient. So what is the forum like today? Today it's a venue for experts to come and to share experiences and to get acquainted with Moscow practices. The forum now is a platform for a dialogue and the creation of meanings. And the current agenda is to share Moscow's experience and solutions as a response to challenges relevant to global cities worldwide. Today, the position of Moscow is being one of the opinion leaders, but not the recipient any longer. So previously, the forum was famous for its wide coverage of topics relevant to the current development of urbanism in a single event. So today we see that it is becoming so-called forum of forums when we are getting concentrated on development of specialized conferences with a focus on practical tools, topical solutions, and best practices. As I told you before about the Urban Health Congress, this year we plan to have more in-forum conferences like the specialized Urban Build Conference and the Sustainable Development and Ecology Block, like a separate congress and forum. We plan that the Urban Build Conference will be devoted to the construction industry as one of the leading sectors of the economy, and modernization of constructions, development and application of new technologies in construction, environmental practices, as well as the issue of human resources policy and about the labor productivity. So I already told about the analytical center, and I would like to say just a few words about this. It was launched by the decision of the mayor of Moscow in 2020 to prepare its own research in the field of urban planning, architecture, economics, and strategic development of the city. So the team has extensive experience in advising on spatial development and solving research problems and participating in the development of products at various stages. So we want to have a urban research conference with the aim of creating a platform for the discussion of urban research issues, including practicing experts. So the key speakers will be the representatives of the academic community in the field of urban development. Well, apart these in-forum conferences, we understand that there are the forum should have kind of external features to organize like something for people to get closer to the city policy and to get involved in all this city development. So Moscow Urban Forum initiated the translation and publication of iconic books by leading international authors. For example, we have released papers of Richard Florida, Edward Glaser, Mazda Ali, who also were speakers of the forum in different years. In addition, its own publishing projects were prepared, and the next step of this process is launching of a series of industry reports. Also, annually, we have the MOVE Community Awards. The Community Awards is an annual multidisciplinary awards ceremony for urban communities, independent projects, private initiatives, and startups who have made a significant contribution to the development of Moscow. Shortlisted nominees are selected by an expert jury, and the winners are chosen by an open online public vote. Supporting these projects and initiatives by the local expert can have a significant impact on a particular area of life in the capital. These projects can become a driver for the restoration of positive social activity in the city. Also, we have got Moscow Urban Forum Festival. It is the largest international urban festival about cities and people who live in them. Every year, more than 200,000 people gather for half-week event to discuss their city and create an open dialogue between those who live in the city and the experts. So what can one truly desire with this forum? We all want to live in a wealthy, healthy, sustainable, modern and human-centric city with affordable housing, inclusive infrastructure. The city should be resilient. So what we want our Moscow Urban Forum to exist for, and we hope that we do our best.
Thank you very much, Katarina.
Thank you.
Dear Norliza, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, listening to, Vanessa, Katarina, I think we all share the same aspiration. But definitely for us, Malaysia Urban Forum, when we first started, we wanted it to be very, very different. We didn't want to be in a seminar room kind of a setting. So we actually created open halls, and we had a space which is there were no rooms literally. There were just spaces in a huge hall that we had, and we just wanted to to make a statement that, it must be inclusive, So we allowed everyone to just practically come in, walk in, come in, and I really miss that, the last year was a hybrid we had to do. This year was totally, virtual. So, I think that part of in-person session, sort of really made a big impact in terms of what Urban Forum is supposed to be, because it's supposed to be a session where, everyone's voice needs to be heard. I think that was what we, our aspiration, as the organization that I am, which is under the Ministry of Housing. We wanted it to allow a platform where everyone can be a part of, can be heard, can participate, and that is, if you could sit beside someone that, you would not dare sit beside, in a meeting room. And that was what we aspire. So we did manage to get that when we had the in-person session. And yeah, like Vanessa, I'm really, really hoping that we could get back to that days, But anyway, what actually have transformed in terms of outputs from the forum is that I think we have managed to get very strong stakeholder groups. Now our stakeholders are calling themselves MOVE, Malaysia Urban Forum Women Assembly, Malaysia Urban Forum Youth Assembly. So it's really nice. And this coalition of stakeholders have come together, and we've actually navigated them in a way that, to identify their key common areas, what do they want to champion as a group? Because everyone has so much to champion, but what would they want to see as a group? So we have been very successful, especially with our Women Assembly WOLF group. And from here, we see that, they've identified their key pillars that they want to address. And every year they are prioritizing their plan of action. And like, for example, this year, they've already, made a statement that how important it is for gender inclusiveness to be put as a central focal, not only in terms of policies, but also in terms of spatial planning, and also in terms of how we bring, more budgets into gender inclusiveness. So I think these kind of working groups become very exciting for us, So it's not just from forum to forum, but it's making sure between forums we have all these working groups being into discussion, and they form their own objectives, they form their own priorities, and as an organization, we facilitate that process, so that we ensure that their pathway meets those objectives that we ourselves actually have set for the Malaysia Urban Forum. And for us, we, just like WOLF, we also come out with outcome report. And from the outcome report, we actually produce white papers. And these papers are actually for any agencies that we think are important to listen to the views of the people, so that people know that they are being heard. Maybe it doesn't come exactly out 100% as they wish it to, but if it could provide some change in any form of actions, I think that is already an achievement for us. But as an organizer, or really, looking into the Malaysia Urban Forum, we always say that it's not an event, it's always a program, it's a platform. And we have always put this very clear pathway, so that we tell our stakeholders that, it's not just this forum, but this forum actually leads to other discussion, either at the regional level or at the high level meetings, which Wataru was mentioning about. So it makes our stakeholders aware that, this is not just a forum that we discuss in Malaysia, but this is a forum that actually have a lot of networks with other organizations as well. And actually, we have been very lucky. Every year, we actually enjoy about 60 to 70 international countries joining us. So we've been very mindful of what we discuss because we want to share our experience also with other parts of the world. So that's where Marmara was also a part of us last year. So I think this year in particular, after 2021, we are putting more pressure on ourselves, I guess, because we never used to measure, like Vanessa was saying, but we've been asked ourselves, what have you achieved, So these questions have actually put us also on the drawing board to say that, okay, let's do it, what have we achieved, really in terms of tangibility, because I think intangibleness, we can observe, we can see, we can hear, but when you ask of these questions again and again, it made me think that, we do have to, in a way, try to measure where we are. So we put some very simple, like, targets for ourselves. And I think, the next few months we'll be trying to see where we are in terms of what we've achieved. But what we're very excited, we just launched our SDG Center in Kuala Lumpur. And I think, it's a big achievement for us because, it's just not about the forum, but it's about how that urban agenda, becomes central to all our discussion. And cities are saying that, it's very important. We need to also participate, have a center where this awareness can continue on a daily basis. So I think, the Urban Forum is exciting because it's not only being relevant, but, you need to move on with the dynamics of the cities and again, for us, for our country. So I think, that's what I have to share, and let's hope to have this continued discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norliza. And you're right, it's not just an event, it's a program, and it has real impacts on us, on all of us, on our cities, and on our institutions. Thank you. Dear Mikhail, please, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes, and then Ezgi, I will ask you to wrap up in 4 minutes your answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. About your question, the INBRICS Forum has an enormous practical value for its participants. The multidisciplinary business program of the forum focuses on discussing issues that are important to regions and municipalities in the field of economic development, trade, investments, construction, and modernization of urban infrastructure, urbanism, digitalization, and innovative technologies, ecology, modern practices in waste disposal and recycling, agriculture, tourism, culture and education, sports, humanitarian cooperation, and social design. The regions and municipalities of various countries are given an opportunity to present their investment projects focused on the sustainable development of territories to a wide range of potential investors, representatives of business, international investment, funds, banks, and private investors. The organizing committee has concluded agreements on cooperation and representation with municipal authorities, commercial and non-profit organizations. A draft roadmap for further cooperation and implementation of joint initiatives of the BRICS municipalities was also developed. More than 200 business sessions, panels, and roundtables are planned for the forum in 2021. Participants in the sessions will discuss a variety of issues relating to municipal governance, from the environment and sustainable urban development to the latest technological developments. Each session will end with a resolution signed by the participants, reflecting the desire to build on the partnerships that have been created. The sessions also include bilateral and multilateral agreements between municipalities and companies, including sister cities agreements and agreements of intent. Naturally, the development of a favorable investment climate in the regions and municipalities import and export and the attraction of investments remains its main goal. Of course, the forum as a mechanism for the development of BRICS plus multidisciplinary cooperation will contribute to achieving this goal. seminar, the Ingress Forum is not just an event, it's a tool for implementation of new projects and initiatives, creation of alliances and unions. After all, the Ingress Forum Organizing Committee establishes cooperation between municipalities every day and implements joint projects that will ultimately lead to the key goal of improving the well-being of our countries and achieving sustainable development. And the main important thing is that we are waiting for all of you the 5 and 6 of November in St. Petersburg this year, and you can be a part of our forum. It will be very nice if you can come. Thanks.
You're going to be there, dear Mikhail. Thank you very much. And actually, in BRICS forums, focus on this public-private partnership is, I think, highly important. And it's the distinctive feature of your forum. And Ezgi, could you also reply in 4 minutes, as I said?
Of course. What we truly desire is to have a real democratic urban life. Türkçe devam edeyim isterseniz.
Demokratik bir kent.
Marmara Urban Forum'la esas amacımız.
I'll continue in Turkish. Our main aim is to have, as all the stakeholders in the cities, from the humans to all other creation that live upon this city, to have this to understand this the plurivocality, and to have alternative solutions which we collectively work upon and achieve. I believe that is our main objective here. And also, we will have the 3rd of Marmara Urban Forum in 2023, which will also correspond to the 100th anniversary of the Republic of Turkey. And this young country, I think we will be able to discuss in this forum the achievements of this young country within these 100 years, and maybe correlated it with what the developments in worldwide platform have also brought. I believe that is our most sincere hope, I believe. Our greatest wish of all of us is to have a more equitable world, which is resilient to crises, with self-sustained cities and self-governance. And it's also, the other speakers mentioned, gender equality was one of our major issues in designing the forums as well. And stakeholders from different spheres were trying to be brought together, especially young people who are among our target audience this year. Especially, we wanted to harness the power of the young people who are active in different spheres. So this is sort of like investing into the future. So we were discussing the past and determining the present, and so and to be retrospective, as our chair also put it, is our main goal. I know we have very little time left, so I maybe leave the floor back to you, Burcuhan, for the closing comments. Thank you.
And actually, I have some questions, but I don't have time. But I just like to read one comment that I find very important. And it says that I learned too much from all the speakers, and the session was a real example of co-acting for urban forums. We can co-act globally via urban forums and develop solutions all together for cities and for the future. I like it very much. So I just wanted you to also hear it. Thank you very much for all your contributions, and we hope to see you in your urban forums in the future. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Çok teşekkürler.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.